Colin Michael Goode was a former gardener with Auckland City Parks and lived in his isolated home near Clares on the Great Barrier Island. He was a known cannabis grower on the island. He had very minimal contact with the outside world. On June 30th, 1999, his decomposing body would be found in his isolated home. He was last seen a month earlier in April of 1999. Colin's body was lying on a double bed in a master bedroom, and most shocking was that his right hand was missing. The remains of his dog were also found beside him. Police found 2 rifles, a .303 and a .22 in the bedroom, but it was quickly determined that Colin did not die from gunshot wounds. In fact, despite comprehensive post-mortem examinations, the coroner could not establish his cause of death. Police found that Colin had complained in 1991 that he had been assaulted in his home by armed mongrel mob members demanding 13 kilograms of cannabis that they claimed he had. They allegedly robbed him of a kilogram of cannabis and $1,240. The person who alerted police that Colin had not been seen in a long time was questioned, but the man was quickly ruled out as a suspect. That man has since died in 2002 of a drug overdose. The case has grown cold since and remains unsolved to this day. Diane Suzuki was a 19-year-old dancer and a student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa who lived in Halawa. She worked part-time as a children's dance instructor at the Rosalie Woodson Dance Academy. On July 6, 1985, Diane had planned to go with her friends to the North Shore of Oahu after work with a friend on that day. The class she was teaching ended at 3 p.m. At 3:15 p.m., her friend arrived at the academy to pick her up, but could not find her anywhere. Her car was still in the parking lot, and she had left her keys and purse behind. After Diane's friend notified her parents of her disappearance, they parked and camped outside the dance studio, just in case she returned. During this time, they witnessed a man named Dewey Hamasaki, his father, and his sister leaving the building, carrying a heavy trunk that was then placed onto a vehicle. Dewey reportedly had a crush on Diane and worked at the academy as a photographer. He was also present at the academy when she finished her class. That day, police questioned Dewey, and he denied having anything to do with her disappearance. Police found that he had scratches on his arms that he claimed had been inflicted when he was attacked by a rooster. A marsh around his house was also searched, but nothing turned up. Although he failed a polygraph test due to the lack of evidence, he was released 5 years later. Police requested a search warrant for the dance studio and for Dewey's father's pig farm. However, only the search warrant for the dance studio was approved. The police investigated the dance studio. At the studio, they used luminol, a substance that reacts to blood. The evidence showed a lot of trace blood evidence in the bathroom area of the dance studio, but there was no record of Diane's blood type to make a comparison. 5 months later, the police finally got the approval to search the pig farm owned by Dewey's father. They dredged a pond on the property for several days. During their search, the officers came across a stone wall and noticed that a section of the wall appeared to have been rebuilt. Dewey's father got agitated when the police turned their attention to the wall. The wall was broken open, but nothing was found. The soil beneath the wall was analyzed, and it indicated that the wall had been built 5 months earlier and also showed that the earth behind the 6-month soil had been absent of oxygen since about the time of Diane's disappearance. Investigators believe the delay in the 2 search warrants gave the Hamasakis enough time to hide the body. The police also dug up some banana trees on the farm and found some clothes that were similar to the ones that Diane were wearing. However, after all those years, Diane's family couldn't identify them. The case has since grown cold. Diane's remains have never been found. Her mother died in 1997 without ever finding out the truth about her daughter's disappearance. It was an exciting night in Paderborn on June 20th, 2006, as the FIFA World Cup tournament was in full swing. 21-year-old student nurse Frauke Liebs visited some friends at a local bar to watch a match between England and Sweden. Sometime before midnight, Frauke's phone ran out of battery, so she borrowed a friend's cell phone battery. Eventually, she returned the battery and began heading home. At around 11 p.m., her apartment from the bar was about 1.5 35 kilometers, and she decided to walk the distance on foot as she did not have enough money with her to catch a bus. Almost 2 hours later at 12:49 a.m., Frauke's roommate, Christos, received a text message from her saying that she would be back later. However, Frauke never arrived home, and when she failed to show up for work, her mother reported her missing. Police tracked the location of the text message she sent to Christos and discovered that the message was sent from the small city of Neheim, which was about 35 kilometers from Paderborn. In the days that followed, Frauke called her roommate 5 times, from 5 different locations within Paderborn. The first call came the night after she disappeared, from an area south of Paderborn. In the call, she said, "Hello, Christos. I just wanted to tell you I'm fine. Tell Mom and Dad I'm fine." This was unusual, since she used his full name rather than his nickname, Chris. In the next few days, Frauke continued to say that she would return home soon, but did not communicate any information about her situation. She provided only vague or even evasive answers to questions. During the last phone call, on June 27th, Frauke's sister spoke to her and later told police that Frauke had answered a faint yes when asked whether she was being held captive, and followed immediately by a loud no before the call abruptly ended. Neither Chris nor any of Frauke's other friends or family would ever hear from her again. 4 months later, on October 4th, a hunter discovered Frauke's skeletonized body in a wooded area near Leash Canal, about 20 kilometers from where she was last seen. The body was found with the clothes she was wearing on the day of her disappearance. Her phone, handbag, watch, and wallet were nowhere to be found. Due to the advanced decomposition of her body, no time or cause of death could be determined. There was no evidence or DNA found at the scene. Police later concluded that Frauke had been held captive for a while in Neheim before being killed and her body dumped. Police believe the phone calls from Paderborn may have been a diversionary maneuver. In total, 900 people have been questioned by police, narrowed down to 5 initial suspects. However, they were soon cleared after they provided alibis. No arrests have been made in the death of Frauke Liebs, and the case remains unsolved. Jenny Low Chang was born in Los Angeles on February 5, 1958. In 1977, she was studying at San Francisco State University. On a Sunday, September 11, 1977, she booked a study session in the J. Paul Leonard Library basement, which was open until 11 p.m. At 6 p.m., she left her dorm and headed towards the library. She never returned to her dorm that night. When her roommate awoke the following morning and saw that Jenny hadn't returned to the dorm and her bed had not been slept in, she reported her missing. 3 hours later, a professor at the university discovered her nude body in the reading room on the 4th floor of the library. Her clothes and books were found near her body. She had been sexually assaulted and severely beaten on the head. She'd also received multiple stab wounds to the heart and chest. There were several broken pieces of furniture in the room, which indicated a struggle had taken place. During the investigation, it was found that Jenny could not have entered the reading room on her own, as it would have been locked at around 5 p.m. on Sunday. Only a key or coded card could open it. About 200 school staff had keys, and about 12 faculty members had coded cards to unlock that particular door. Out of all the possible suspects, only 2 were ever questioned: a campus security guard and a faculty member, but both were never charged due to lack of any evidence. Some people theorize that the Zodiac killer was the culprit, but there have been no leads or suspects in the case, and it remains unsolved for more than 40 years. Tristan Bruback was born in 1984 in Frankfurt, Austria. He was the only child to his parents. Tristan went to Walter Cook Primary School up until 5th grade, after which he moved to a school in Zint-Lincoln. Tristan grew up in difficult conditions. His mother was a drug addict who committed suicide when her son was only 10 years old. Tristan and his father continued to live in Frankfurt with Tristan's grandmother, soon moving in with them to look after the young boy. Tristan was described as a shy but very independent boy. He spent his time playing video games and tending to his pet rabbit. When he wasn't inside, he would spend time walking around his neighborhood all by himself, even though the area they lived in was known to be rough during his preteen years. Tristan started to rebel. He even began smoking cigarettes in an effort to fit in with older children. However, he was still bullied by the other children in the neighborhood. On March 26, 1998, Tristan woke up with the back pain and asked his father if he could visit a doctor. But his father told him to go to school first. Tristan would go to school that morning at around 9 a.m. Boncom after hanging out with a friend outside of the school premises. Later in the day, he asked his teacher if he could leave early to see a doctor as his back was hurting. He was granted permission and left his school. At around 1:30 p.m., Tristan was last seen alive at Bruno Ashlaga, a park in front of Frankfurt Höchst railway station. At 3:20 p.m., his body would be discovered by his fellow classmates. On their way back home, they returned to the school to tell their teachers, and the police were informed. At 5 p.m., Tristan's body was lying in a pedestrian tunnel that runs alongside an underground section of the Liebach River. He had been severely beaten, strangled, and his neck had a deep cut. Moreover, both of his testicles, as well as flesh from his buttocks and thighs, had been removed. The murder weapon was found next to the body. During their investigation, 3 teenagers claimed to have seen the murder taking place from a distance. However, they did not realize it at the time. They gave a description of the suspect, and a composite sketch was made. On April 7, 1998, a man called into the Frankfurt police station from a payphone in the Frankfurt Höchst train station, claiming that he had murdered Tristan. In the call, he said he planned on turning himself into the police and gave a description of his appearance, stating that he is roughly 180 centimeters tall, roughly 5'11", and have long black hair. He then ended the call with "Arrest me." By the time police arrived at the train station, they could not find anyone by that description. The description he provided was different from the description provided by the 3 witnesses earlier. It is believed that the caller was trying to cloud the investigation by providing the wrong description. In March of 1999, Tristan's backpack was found in a forest in Edenhausen, 25 kilometers from the crime scene. Inside the backpack, police found a road map of Germany in Czech language, which did not belong to Tristan. The police consequently expanded their inquiries to the Czech Republic and Slovakia, but no viable leads emerged. In October of 1999, an unknown person was digging 1.2 meters deep into Tristan's grave. Late at night, the coffin was not opened. He was never seen. There were no witnesses, but police think he was disturbed while digging and therefore left. In the year 2000, all males between the ages of 15 and 45 who lived or commuted near the vicinity of the murder were voluntarily asked to give their fingerprints, and more than 99% of the men in the area complied. Despite the investigation of several persons of interest and the large-scale investigation done by police, Tristan's case remains unsolved.